Hello, my name is Kelly Lemon and I'm making this video because you may well be in the position where you found an investment property and you're about to go and view it, or you've just viewed it and you're not really sure how to handle the viewing. Now, I'm making this video because I've been on hundreds of viewings over the years. I've built up a buy-to-let property portfolio, so this is a subject area that I know quite a lot about and I'm quite passionate about. And I wanted to make this particular video because quite often people say in this industry, just go and view it. You'll know it when you see it. And that for me could not be further from the truth, because actually when you're looking for an investment property or real estate, you have to be very specific about what it is you're looking for, and you have to be very clear before you even get to the viewing, because if you don't, you'll get to the viewing and quite honestly you'll be overwhelmed, because the estate agent has got a job to do. Their job is to show you the house, it's to woo you, it's to sell the features and benefits. Your job is completely different. In essence, you're a bit like an investigative journalist. Your job is to kind of ask questions, is to clarify information, is to confirm information, and it's to go through that list of questions that you should have come up with before you go and view the property. Now, don't worry if you've already gone and seen a property and some of these things are coming to you afterwards. That's exactly why I'm making you this video, because these are the sorts of things to think about and look for when you are looking at an investment property to buy as an investment. So, let's get started. As I said, when people say, I'll know it when I see it, I couldn't disagree more. You absolutely won't know when you see it, or when you do see it and you think you know it, then you are buying from emotion. You are making decisions from emotion. And actually, and we all make emotion-based decisions. There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to be really careful when you're making emotional-based decisions, and you've got to be really aware of when you're doing it. Now, if you go through that criteria, if you're clear on what it is you want to achieve before you see the viewing, and then you get there and it kind of ticks all those boxes, fine, that's not a problem. But without doing that prep up front, then it really is just an emotional decision. And the challenge with an emotional decision is, when you make an emotional decision, your brain almost acts as a bit like a PA for your emotional mind, and it will come up with logic or stats or data to kind of support that decision, but you've already made it. And that's the key thing. You've led with your heart, you've already made that decision, and really your brain then is just kind of pacifying your heart, so to speak, and giving you the evidence you need to say, yes, this is a good decision. So I like to kind of go from it the other way, which is start with the head, start with the data, start with the numbers, and then you can engage your heart a little bit later on down the line. So as I say, emotional decisions quite often equal expensive mistakes. So cannot stress that enough. Please be really aware if you're making an emotional decision, and don't forget, this is an investment property. That's a really key thing to remember. And the other thing that you need to remember is that the job of the estate agent, who will be very skilled at this, or should be very skilled at this, is to make you fall in love with the property. So that's a key part. Now, the other thing when you're doing a viewing is I would always advise going there either before or after the viewing, because you're actually scouting the area. Now, when you look and you use a tool like Rightmove, which I'll talk about in a moment, you see pictures, you see floor plans. All of those pictures are usually done by a professional, so they are done in a certain light, in a certain tone. Even when you do the viewing, there might be certain smells there that are there to kind of enhance that emotional decision-making process, as I mentioned earlier. But really, the other massive element to it that nobody mentions either on the viewing or necessarily on your desktop research is the actual area. And I remember moving to a new area. I was really keen on this area for all sorts of reasons. And I found a property that was in a neighbourhood that some of the locals said wasn't great. So I kind of had input from other people, took that on board. But actually I wanted to go and kind of find out for myself. So I remember when I was looking at this property and I was doing my prep work for the viewing, I actually went there on a Saturday night, 10 p.m, walked around the estate, got a feel for it, got a sense of kind of who are the sorts of people that hang around, what kind of the noise level's like, where are they hanging around, those sorts of things. So you're really looking to kind of scout the area and get a feel for what would the experience be like for your tenant type, and does the experience in the area match the tenant type that you had in mind when you searched or you specifically went through the criteria for this property. The other key thing to say is you control the viewing. Now that's a bit of a mindset shift, because quite often when you go to a viewing, you're led in by the estate agent and you're very much led through a process. but actually it's your viewing. And I encourage people in my trainings to go to a viewing with a list of questions, and your job there is to get those questions answered. So take your research and be prepared to challenge an estate agent, and be prepared to, and when I say challenge, I mean ask them questions. And quite often I'll ask them questions they already know the answer to, and I may have known the answer from a desktop perspective, I may have called the estate agency earlier, or I may just know the answer, and I'll ask those questions because I'm kind of interviewing the agent to find out how transparent they are with certain bits of information, because ultimately, particularly if I go on to buy this property, this is the start of a relationship, and I kind of need to know what the base of that relationship is and kind of who I'm dealing with. Because if I don't look at this property, I'll probably be looking at other properties. So for me, the viewing, as much as they're interviewing me as a possible purchaser, I'm interviewing them. And that's a key part of it as well. And I find now I've been investing in property for 20 years, and there's all sorts of wonderful, weird and clever apps, gadgets and all those sorts of things. And I'm not saying they're bad whatsoever. But when you're starting out in property, actually you don't necessarily need fancy tools, because sometimes I find with fancy tools, they kind of take the brain work out of it, and they kind of take out the common sense. So for me, Rightmove, and if you're not aware of Rightmove, that's a website that's free to use. And on that website, it has properties for sale and properties for rent. Along with land and all sorts of other things, and shops and commercial properties. But for this purposes, it's got properties that you can buy and properties that you can rent. Now that's really important, because when you're looking at buying a property, you're not just looking at buying a property, you're also looking at the rental aspect of it. Now I actually created a training video. In fact, I've shared a training video of a training I did with another group, where I basically go to Rightmove and say, well, this is how I approach on Rightmove, because the great thing about Rightmove, and loads of other free tools out there, and the reason I've used Rightmove is because it's one of the better known ones, but it's also where most of the properties appear. Not every property in the world, or certainly in the UK, appears on Rightmove, but quite a lot do. And actually, it's got some great little tips and techniques on there, and little tools that you can use that really help you kind of narrow in on the area, and for me, get a list of questions, because that is that desktop due diligence, that research that I'm doing. So I've actually created a video where you can see me going through the process of actually on Rightmove. It's a screen share. There's the property. Right, okay, what am I looking for? Why am I looking for it? Where can I get this information? All from one place. And I've even created like a PDF that goes alongside it, where you can follow the process. You can understand where it fits in the whole buying process, and also there's a bit of a checklist there. So I cannot recommend that highly enough, because when you're doing a viewing, if you just go unprepared, without a checklist or without a list of questions or without that basic research being done, then you are opening yourself up to making really expensive mistakes. It's not a lot of work. What I'm talking about now is not a lot of work at all. And the more you do it, the more you'll get used to it, and also the more familiar you'll get with it. So this is a really good desktop exercise to do, so that when you go to a viewing, you kind of have a much better idea of how to do it. And I always say, because I also work in mediation, and I always say there, whoever's asking the questions controls the conversation. And that's a really important thing to remember, because when you get to the viewing bit, it's a relationship bit. So actually learning how to communicate, learning how to ask questions and kind of really get to the crux of the issue is a really good skill set. And there's so many things I've found out on viewings, so many things that I thought were one way and actually turned out to be a different way. And actually it was all through that viewing process and kind of nailing that down that I kind of really got to the crux of the issue. So I hope that video has been really helpful. I would encourage you to go and look at the Rightmove and look at my video and PDF. And if you just want to join a community, if you're interested in property or real estate, you're trying to get into it, you're already in it, but actually it can be a lonely business, and you just kind of want to be around people that know more about it, or that you can call on, or if you just want to know a little bit more about my journey, kind of how I got there, what I did and all those sorts of things, then there'll also be a link with this video to join my community, and it's one that I'm really active in. So if you've got any questions, just shoot me an email, and it's questions like the questions that I get in those emails that help me come up with videos like this, because then I know the questions that people are asking themselves. And that's really kind of what I'm here to do, is to kind of answer those questions, take the knowledge that I've learned, the experience, and distill it and kind of make it in a way that's easy to understand. Anyway, I hope you found that really useful, and I'm sure I will see you in another video, but bye for now.